germination of pollen grain. Germination of pollen grain. Actually, the pollen grain starts the germination. Germination is nothing but the division of the pollen grain to produce the daughter cells related to the male gametophyte. So, that will be taking place when the pollen grain is present inside the pollen sac of the anther. So, we call it as a precocious development, and due to germination the male gametophyte is formed. And as we know that in angiosperms the gametophyte stage is highly reduced, which does not have any plant organization and represented with only few number of cells. So, that is the process where the germination of pollen grain is helping in the formation of few celled male gametophyte. So, if we take the pollen grain here, so as we know that the pollen grain is nearly spherical in structure, which contains cytoplasm along with the haploid nucleus in it, The division of the pollen grain will start when the pollen grain is present inside the anther, and in this process first the nucleus will divide to form or we can say that pollen grain will divide to form two unequal cells. One, a large size cell will be formed and other will be a small cell size. So, the large cell size is called as a vegetative cell or the vegetative nucleus. Small cell is called as a generative cell or generative nucleus. So, in this one so we can see here in this diagram where two cells will be formed. In these two nuclei appear to be present in the same cell. The two nuclei appear to be present in the same cell. The large size cell and the small size. The small size cell is a generative and the large size cell is a vegetative cell. So, here at this two celled stage, now the pollen grain is having two cells and we consider this as a partially developed male gametophyte. This stage is called as partially developed male gametophyte. And in majority of the angiosperms, the pollen grains are released at this stage, that is at the two celled stage they are released from the anther. And nearly about 60% of angiosperms we can say this type of pollination at two cell stage is taking place, and in some of them after this division one more division is taking place where the generative cell is further divided to form two cells. Those two cells are called as a male gametes. The generative cell will divide further by mitosis, so to form two male gametes. So, now inside the pollen grain large vegetative cell is present and two male gametes are present. So, now we consider this as a three celled stage. So, in some of the angiospermic plants the pollen grains are released at three celled stage also, and I say that in majority, that is about 60% of the angiosperms, the pollen grains are released at two celled stage, whereas in other angiospermic plants the pollen grains are released at the three celled stage. When the pollen grains are released at two celled stage, the cells which are present in the pollen grain are the vegetative cell and the generative cell, but when they are released at three cell stage, the cells which are present in the pollen grain are the vegetative cell and two male gametes. And here the most common type is the releasing of pollen grains at two cell stage. So, let us discuss how many divisions are taking place before pollination and after pollination here itself. So, if we take the pollen grain here, this is haploid in condition. This pollen grain will undergo the first mitosis. Okay, when, as we know that when one mitosis is taking place, one spindle is formed. So we can say one spindle apparatus is formed. This pollen grain, because of mitosis, and this mitosis is also unequal mitosis. Why? Because one cell is the resultant from the out of the two cells, one cell is larger in size and one cell is smaller in size. So vegetative cell which is haploid in condition, and the second one is a generative cell that is also haploid in condition. So this is the first division of the male gametophyte which is taking place inside the anther or pollen sac, and in majority of the cases the pollination will takes place at this stage. That is, the pollen grains are released from the anther and reach the stigma, and after reaching the stigma, what happens is the generative cell will further divide by one more mitosis. So as one mitosis is taking place, here also one spindle apparatus is formed. This is resulting into two male gametes. Two male gametes. So here this is a first division of male gametophyte before pollination. This is a second division of male gametophyte after pollination. So that total number of mitotic divisions which are taking place in the formation of male gametophyte is 2 mitotic divisions, and finally how many cells are present in a completely developed male gametophyte is 3 cells. One is first one vegetative cell and 2 male gametes. So total number of cells are 3 in a completely developed male gametophyte. And how many spindle apparata are formed? 2 male gametes from one pollen grain means here 2 mitoses are taking place. Each mitosis will result in formation of one spindle apparatus, so that 2 spindle apparata are formed to produce 2 male gametes from one pollen grain. If you want to observe the same type of changes in the form of diagrammatic representation, so here after formation of the two cells here, the vegetative cell will help in the breaking little bit. We can say that because the vegetative cell will push the intine wall from inside, such that it will exert the pressure on the exine wall. So in which area does the pressure will be exerted means particularly in the germ pore region. The pressure will be exerted such that what happens, this is the 2 cells, 2 nuclei which are present here, and what happens here, it is in the germ pore region the exine will be broken. When the exine is broken, because of the pressure exerted by the vegetative nucleus, the intine is pushed outside. This intine will, as it is pushed outside, will be forming like a protuberance through this germ pore region. This protuberance will gradually increase in its size, so it will be converted into a tube-like structure. So this is called as pollen tube. So this pollen tube is nothing but the extension of the intine wall. That's the reason why whatever the chemical composition is there with the intine wall, the same type of chemical composition is present in the pollen tube also, that is pectocellulose is present. And here the the vegetative nucleus will along with the generative nucleus will enter into the pollen tube. And when both the cells are moving into the pollen tube along with the growing pollen tube, so what happens is in the meantime the generative nucleus will divide further by mitosis and convert into 2 male gametes, so that in the meantime the pollen tube will contain 3 cells, that is 1 vegetative nucleus and 2 male gametes are present. So this is how the process of germination is taking place in the pollen grains and resulting in the formation of the 3-celled male gametophyte.